1, 2. It is 16 minutes past the hour of 9, I beg your pardon, and it's a good time to call this house to order. Humbly I ask, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Thank you very much. It's a bright sunny morning right here in the Kwapim Hills of the eastern region of Ghana, where I say good morning to you, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the second edition of the Africa Prosperity Dialogues. My name is Jerry Ajololo, and I'm delighted to stand before you as one of the program directors for this three-day summit. In a short while, we'll receive in our midst the gifts of this occasion, the President of our Republic, together with his entourage. I urge all our members at the back to please move forward and fill the seats in front. If you can hear me from outside, all is set now for us to receive the President of our Republic and his entourage. I kindly urge you all to please make your way in for us to begin on time.
Enables governments to bring nationwide transformation to their education systems. Its solutions provide a better future across the globe by implementing innovations for the entire education spectrum, from K-12 to employability and higher education. Our interventions address the key educative challenges through accessibility and inclusion, increasing capacity and enrollment, enhanced learning experience, improving employability by leveraging our holistic implementation model involving infrastructure development, technology-enabled teaching and learning solutions, new age content delivery, and competency-based training solutions. Agriculture. The ability to transform agriculture into a productive and thriving pillar of an economy is at the heart of our agriculture offering, which reinvigorates the entire agriculture value chain. Planet One helps governments create well-equipped, technologically advanced facilities that support many small and marginal farmers, improving their yields and incomes. By developing sustainable farm service centers, we empower these marginal farmers across the entire value chain of agriculture, training them in resilient production and processing techniques, providing access to modern agricultural mechanization, increasing coverage of storage facilities, empowering farmers with provision of processing facilities, and securing long-term offtake financing. Natural resources. Planet One Natural Resources is a global mining company focusing on future-enabling metals and minerals for a cleaner, greener world and to meet the everyday demands of billions of consumers. Engineering, procurement, and construction. Our EPC and Engineering Solutions business unit spearheads sustainable infrastructure development projects in various countries. Our highly experienced professional teams execute large infrastructure projects from ideation to commissioning on a turnkey basis with single source responsibility. We take pride in our impeccable delivery track record with various governments worldwide.
Ladies and gentlemen, the project has been completed. It has been delivered. I'm happy to state that in spite of the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic, Planet One Group has successfully completed the project on time.
Positive social impact and sustained growth are the heart of each project that Planet One undertakes.
I think year 2023 was a very interesting and a very pivotal year, especially for the energy industry, not just locally and within our sub-region, but also globally. We increased our revenue and operations base by over fourfold, within the year. We are compared from, our performance by the beginning of the year. As an energy company, we are playing across the entire value chain from the upstream all the way down to the downstream. We are proud of the agreement we just signed with the NCDMB that enables us, develop our project within Bayelsa, EMEA, and also in Calabar and EMEA in Bayelsa. And so we've made some very interesting developments, within the year. We're happy to say that, for example, in Ghana, we're the first company that was awarded a virtual pipeline license, to establish a CNG model station and distribution system within Tema region in Ghana. We have made appreciable progress in that respect. We've executed all the relevant contracts.
Beyond Ghana, we're currently developing an LNG project in Equatorial Guinea to also be able to contribute to natural gas distribution and offtake in Equatorial Guinea. So the combination of the virtual pipeline solutions that we're doing in Nigeria plus our gas infrastructure solutions within Africa, this is something we're excited about, and we hope that a lot of these projects will become completed by 2024.
It was an amazing year for us here at Tetraco Energy Group. We championed capacity development initiatives and also contributed to local content development.
The inspiration. The inspiration behind Planet One Group is our philosophy from imagination to impact. This principle drives us to continually innovate creatively and efficiently, thereby delivering solutions which positively impact the lives of people around the world. Planet One Group has made positive impacts on developing societies through our innovations in education, agriculture, energy, and natural resources, sectors which play pivotal roles in laying the foundation for the rapid growth and prosperity of nations. Today, we're proud to have delivered successful societal outcomes across North America, United Kingdom, Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. Education. Planet One Education enables governments to bring nationwide transformation to their education systems. Its solutions provide a better future across the globe by implementing innovations for the entire education spectrum, from K-12 to employability and higher education. Our interventions address the key educative challenges through accessibility and inclusion, increasing capacity and enrollment, enhanced learning experience, improving employability by leveraging our holistic implementation model involving infrastructure development, technology-enabled teaching and learning solutions, new age content delivery, and competency-based training solutions. Agriculture. The ability to transform agriculture into a productive and thriving pillar of an economy is at the heart of our agriculture offering, which reinvigorates the entire agriculture value chain. Planet One helps governments create well-equipped, technologically advanced facilities that support many small and marginal farmers, improving their yields and incomes. By developing sustainable farm service centers, we empower these marginal farmers across the entire value chain of agriculture, training them in resilient production and processing techniques, providing access to modern agricultural mechanization, increasing coverage of storage facilities, empowering farmers with provision of processing facilities, and securing long-term offtake financing. Natural resources. Planet One Natural Resources is a global mining company focusing on future-enabling metals and minerals for a cleaner, greener world and to meet the everyday demands of billions of consumers. Engineering, procurement, and construction. Our EPC and Engineering Solutions business unit spearheads sustainable infrastructure development projects in various countries. Our highly experienced professional teams execute large infrastructure projects from ideation to commissioning on a turnkey basis with single-source responsibility. We take pride in our impeccable delivery track record with various governments worldwide.
Ladies and gentlemen, the project has been completed. It has been delivered. I'm happy to state that in spite of the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic, Planet One Group has successfully completed the project on time.
Positive social impact and sustained growth are the heart of each project that Planet One undertakes.
Africa, wake up. This is your time. Let every clock chime. Africa without borders, without barriers to creativity and prosperity. Embrace it. Unleash it. Gone was the era when our resources fed the production lines of others, only for us to buy back at a higher price what we gave away cheaply. Gone should be this era where it is easier to travel through another continent to get to an AU member state. Away must be the system which makes it cheaper and faster to ship from Asia to Africa than from East to West Africa. We are ready to build the Africa we want, the Africa we deserve, and Africa we can. Rich as we have and rich we must be. Strongest in numbers, strongest in resources. Stronger now in working together for shared prosperity. The future is now. The Africa Prosperity Dialogues 2024 beckons us to the serene hills of Ebri, Ghana, where minds converge, ideas bloom, and destinies intertwine to transform Africa. That is why we are here, to think together, plan together, work together, to win and win for Africa together. We have the expertise. We can raise the money, build the roads, railways, factories, and digital platforms to produce what we consume and add value to what we export. Buy from the manufacturer in Casablanca without the dollar. The tech engineer from Kigali can work in Tunis from Banjul. The Abidjan businesswoman has a market of 1.4 billion people. The tourist from Lusaka needs no visa to trek Africa. Making calls across Africa with no roaming charges is possible. Doing mobile money across is doable too. Catch the train from Cairo to Joburg. Fly direct from Kinshasa to Kingston. Sell our crude to our refineries. Use our lands to feed our processing plants and mouths. The Africa we inherited should not be the Africa we pass on. This should be our pledge, our pact. Let's rewrite our story, restore dignity. Let the private sector own and drive the future that has been set by the African Union. A united Africa of countless opportunities and boundless possibilities. Together, we are delivering prosperity in Africa. Together, we will produce, add value, and trade. Together, we rise for the Africa we want, the Africa we deserve, and the Africa we can. Africa, wake up. This is your time. Let every clock chime. Africa without borders, without barriers to creativity and prosperity. Embrace it. Unleash it. Gone was the era when our resources fed the production lines of others, only for us to buy back at a higher price what we gave away cheaply. Gone should be this era where it is easier to travel through another continent to get to an AU member state. Away must be the system which makes it cheaper and faster to ship from Asia to Africa than from East to West Africa. We are ready to build the Africa we want, the Africa we deserve, and Africa we can. Rich as we have and rich we must be. Strongest in numbers, strongest in resources. Stronger now in working together for shared prosperity. The future is now. The Africa Prosperity Dialogues 2024 beckons us to the serene hills of Ebri, Ghana, where minds converge, ideas bloom, and destinies intertwine to transform Africa. That is why we are here, to think together, plan together, work together, to win and win for Africa together. We have the expertise. We can raise the money, build the roads, railways, factories, and digital platforms to produce what we consume and add value to what we export. Buy from the manufacturer in Casablanca without the dollar. The tech engineer from Kigali can work in Tunis from Banjul. The Abidjan businesswoman has a market of 1.4 billion people. The tourist from Lusaka needs no visa to trek Africa. Making calls across Africa with no roaming charges is possible. Doing mobile money across is doable too. Catch the train from Cairo to Joburg. Fly direct from Kinshasa to Kingston. Sell our crude to our refineries. Use our lands to feed our processing plants and mouths. The Africa we inherited should not be the Africa we pass on. This should be our pledge, our pact. Let's rewrite our story, restore dignity. Let the private sector own and drive the future that has been set by the African Union. a united Africa of countless opportunities and boundless possibilities. Together, we are delivering prosperity in Africa. Together, we will produce, add value, and trade. Together, we rise for the Africa we want, the Africa we deserve, and the Africa we can. Africa, wake up. This is your time. Let every clock chime. Africa without borders, without barriers to creativity and prosperity. Embrace it. Unleash it. Gone was the era when our resources fed the production lines of others, only for us to buy back at a higher price what we gave away cheaply. Gone should be this era where it is easier to travel through another continent to get to an AU member state. Away must be the system which makes it cheaper and faster to ship from Asia to Africa than from East to West Africa. We are ready to build the Africa we want, the Africa we deserve, and Africa we can. Rich as we have and rich we must be. Strongest in numbers, strongest in resources. Stronger now in working together for shared prosperity. The future is now. The Africa Prosperity Dialogues 2024 beckons us to the serene hills of Ebri, Ghana, where minds converge, ideas bloom, and destinies intertwine to transform Africa. That is why we are here, to think together, plan together, work together, to win and win for Africa together. We have the expertise. We can raise the money, build the roads, railways, factories, and digital platforms to produce what we consume and add value to what we export. Buy from the manufacturer in Casablanca without the dollar. The tech engineer from Kigali can work in Tunis from Banjul. The Abidjan businesswoman has a market of 1.4 billion people. The tourist from Lusaka needs no visa to trek Africa. Making calls across Africa with no roaming charges is possible. Doing mobile money across is doable too. Catch the train from Cairo to Joburg. Fly direct from Kinshasa to Kingston. Sell our crude to our refineries. Use our lands to feed our processing plants and mouths. The Africa we inherited should not be the Africa we pass on. This should be our pledge, our pact. Let's rewrite our story, restore dignity. Let the private sector own and drive the future that has been set by the African Union. A united Africa of countless opportunities and boundless possibilities. Together, we are delivering prosperity in Africa. Together, we will produce, add value, and trade. Together, we rise for the Africa we want, the Africa we deserve, and the Africa we can. Africa, wake up. This is your time. Let every clock chime. Africa without borders, without barriers to creativity and prosperity. Embrace it. Unleash it. Gone was the era when our resources fed the production lines of others, only for us to buy back at a higher price what we gave away cheaply. Gone should be this era where it is easier to travel through another continent to get to an AU member state. Away must be the system which makes it cheaper and faster to ship from Asia to Africa than from East to West Africa. We are ready to build the Africa we want, the Africa we deserve, and Africa we can. Rich as we have and rich we must be. Strongest in numbers, strongest in resources. Stronger now in working together for shared prosperity. The future is now. The Africa Prosperity Dialogues 2024 beckons us to the serene hills of Ebri, Ghana, where minds converge, ideas bloom, and destinies intertwine to transform Africa. That is why we are here, to think together, plan together, work together, to win and win for Africa together. We have the expertise. We can raise the money, build the roads, railways, factories, and digital platforms to produce what we consume and add value to what we export. Buy from the manufacturer in Casablanca without the dollar. The tech engineer from Kigali can work in Tunis from Banjul. The Abidjan businesswoman has a market of 1.4 billion people. The tourist from Lusaka needs no visa to trek Africa. Making calls across Africa with no roaming charges is possible. Doing mobile money across is doable too. Catch Catch the train from Cairo to Joburg. Fly direct from Kinshasa to Kingston. Sell our crude to our refineries. Use our lands to feed our processing plants and mouths. The Africa we inherited should not be the Africa we pass on. This should be our pledge, our pact. Let's rewrite our story, restore dignity. Let the private sector own and drive the future that has been set by the African Union. A united Africa of countless opportunities and boundless possibilities. Together, we are delivering prosperity in Africa. Together, we will produce, add value, and trade. Together, we rise for the Africa we want, the Africa we deserve, and the Africa we can. Africa, wake up. This is your time. Let every clock chime. Africa without borders, without barriers to creativity and prosperity. Embrace it. Unleash it. Gone was the era when our resources fed the production lines of others, only for us to buy back at a higher price what we gave away cheaply. Gone should be this era where it is easier to travel through another continent to get to an AU member state. Away must be the system which makes it cheaper and faster to ship from Asia to Africa than from East to West Africa. We are ready to build the Africa we want, the Africa we deserve, and Africa we can. Rich as we have and rich we must be. Strongest in numbers, strongest in resources. Stronger now in working together for shared prosperity. The future is now. The Africa Prosperity Dialogues 2024 beckons us to the serene hills of Ebri, Ghana, where minds converge, ideas bloom, and destinies intertwine to transform Africa. That is why we are here, to think together, plan together, work together, to win and win for Africa together. We have the expertise. We can raise the money, build the roads, railways, factories, and digital platforms to produce what we consume and add value to what we export. Buy from the manufacturer in Casablanca without the dollar. The tech engineer from Kigali can work in Tunis from Banjul. The Abidjan businesswoman has a market of 1.4 billion people. The tourist from Lusaka needs no visa to trek Africa. Making calls across Africa with no roaming charges is possible. Doing mobile money across is doable too. Catch the train from Cairo to Joburg. Fly direct from Kinshasa to Kingston. Sell our crude to our refineries. Use our lands to feed our processing plants and mouths. The Africa we inherited should not be the Africa we pass on. This should be our pledge, our pact. Let's rewrite our story, restore dignity. Let the private sector own and drive the future that has been set by the African Union. A united Africa of countless opportunities and boundless possibilities. Together, we are delivering prosperity in Africa. Together, we will produce, add value, and trade. Together, we rise for the Africa we want, the Africa we deserve, and the Africa we can.
In the heart of Africa, a vision passes with promise. From bustling markets to thriving cities, every corner of the continent holds immense potential. At End-to-End, we are committed to our role as an enabler, growing the economies we operate in by building resilience and bridging Africa's connectivity gap through broadband access, digital and financial inclusion, and socio-economic development. We continue to realize these goals under the guidance of our Ambition 2025 strategy, with the non-stop growth and expansion of our platform businesses, reaching inspiring new milestones, and our world-class GSM network continuing to lead the charge for 5G adoption in South Africa, Nigeria, and Zambia, with more countries in trials set to follow. Our belief that everyone deserves the benefits of a modern connected life also continues to drive our efforts for our fellow Africans. From our pledge to protect the planet by reaching net zero emissions by 2040, to our work to create empowered communities that
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I ask that we all take our seats. We make welcome the Secretary General of the AfCFTA Secretariat, His Excellency Wamkele Mene. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, all is set for the arrival of the President of our Republic. I ask that we all take our seats. Please be seated. Thank you very much. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the President of our Republic, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, please rise. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the anthems of the African Union and the Republic of Ghana. We ask for the peace and blessings from the great God of Africa, which have overseen all deliberations on this beloved motherland, to be our portion from now until the end of this summit. Amen. Please sit. And now, Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the writer king who sips communion wine with the gods, Nana Asasi.
We will not die the death of dreams. We will not die the death of dreams. We will not die the death of dreams. For we are the dream that our elders woke up from nothingness in eternity to sleep into reality. And so, you and you and you, maybe me, are all the magic that Africa needs to work again. It is only an urgent matter that makes the hunter abandon the chase, and the farmer abandon the harvest, and mother abandon suckling her children, that we shall have communion of ourselves. I am the writer king who sips communion wine from the calabash, and I have not come to pour libation. I simply came to leave you a beautiful matter to ponder over. Welcome to the center of the world. Welcome to the place where the earth spins on its axis, this place where it all goes round. And I dare tell you, we have made many beautiful journeys, but when you look at my feet, we still wear golden slippers. For we are the wise ones who keep the earth going round. And so when you travel with the mind, the feet does not gather dust. Thus far, we have come to this place on a journey of the mind. And so the world will not see the dust our feet gathers, for we are here to work smart, think smart, and ensure that Africa takes a rightful place on the thrones of the earth. Lend me your ears, but lend me your hearts and your minds as we come to confer. To deliver prosperity in Africa, it simply says, when our elders go before the gods, they go 3 times. And so we say, produce, refine, and then don't dump it on the doorsteps of the world. Let us sit, let us speak, let us dialogue, and let us trade. Trade would imply that we would exchange all the beautiful things we produce for something, for the future. And so, just as the batons was handed over down to us, we can deliver a beautiful future to generations that come after us. I have been young, I am old, I'm still moving on. Growing up was a dream. This life is harsh reality. What we deliver to the future will be beautiful presents of our presence here at the center of the earth. When the music is good, you pay to hear it twice. And so last year we began a beautiful conversation, and we are here to finish it. For indeed, when you fall asleep, your last word stands in limbo, awaiting whether you show up early or late from the other side of reality. Africa, a good matter is short. I will be that third eye, standing on the junctions of dreams and realities, remembering that this is the place where earth and sea and sky meet to share gossip. And I will remind you of what you put in, and she put in, and we put in, to ensure that Africa will work again. And so our common strength is not what we have stashed in our vaults. What we have really is the beautiful brains that we carry on our shoulders. And so when you travel with the mind, the feet does not gather dust, but we have gathered to rouse the dust of our intellect and say, how do we make it work with the money we have, with the natural resources embedded in the wombs of the earth, not leaving behind the ways of our ancestors? For a child is nothing, it is only the glory of his forebears that the world sees and tolerates in him. My words are heavy, they say. It's because our dreams are heavier as a people, and we aspire that all the things we imagine will take shape and come to life. Africa, how does this work? I am wealthy. You are wealthy. We are wealthy, but you see, gold. Gold is not essentially what we dig from the earth. Gold is essentially what you give to a man such that he is so satisfied and he never hungers again. Gold is knowledge. Gold is wisdom. Gold is information. And so, welcome into this age where Africans are awake and we are informed and we know that our destinies belong in our own hands. Ago, Ago, Ago. I knocked on your doors 3 times to welcome you to a matter that is urgent. When all this is done, the talk shops are over and we get down into the workshops. When all of this is done, I will be back to remind you of all the promises we made, and then I will tell those who are yet to enter the thoughts of time that because we sowed viable seeds handed down by our ancestors that we did not consider food, we will not die the death of dreams. We will not die the death of dreams. We will not die the death of dreams because we share our dreams with the rest of the world and we sow them as seeds. And so, the one who is behind can only imitate the steps of the one who is ahead. And so, my elders, burdens of a great vision weigh the shoulders of the mind. And so, I leave you with the burden of all the young people of Africa and say thank you for bringing us to the table so that we can also learn to educate the future the way to go, so that when it is old and we are older, it will know to treat us with some respect. Congratulations. Good morning. Sandazua. Soyez le bienvenu au Ghana. Whatever word you leave here, remember, it's the seed that we sow, and I will be here to amplify it to so many heartbeats out there. I did not come to bore you with statistics. I simply came to leave you a hefty matter to think over for 2 days of talk. The 3rd day will be how we step out into our various countries and make this field so ripe that we call Africa work again. This is my heartbeat. I beat my chest as a drum, and I hope you do same too. For it simply says, when I beat it, I feel the reverb of Africa. I'm the writer king who sips communion wine from the calabash. Nanasasi, or Mama Kwejebi Wafase. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome home. Thank you.
If you're joining us here at Pediase Lodge in the Equiapim Hills of the eastern region of Ghana, on radio, on television, or online, I say greetings and congratulations. You have made it to the Africa Prosperity Dialogues 2024. Give yourselves a resounding round of applause. Africa, I cannot feel you. Let's have a thunderous round of applause. I stand before you as Jerry Ajololo, a proud son of this soil, and it's with great delight that I represent all the numerous faces and voices you will be hearing and seeing as program directors for these 3 inspirational days that we're going to be here as we chart a new path for Africa, one premised on production, value addition, and trade. This morning, we meet here to lend action to ambition by delivering these bold promises. But we're greatly honored by the presence of champions of these great causes through the years. Chief amongst us, make welcome the President of our Republic, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. He is joined by co-champions of this endeavor, an African statesman, a former President of the Republic of Mozambique, and chairperson of the Africa Forum, His Excellency Joaquim Alberto Chissano. We make welcome our very own, the Secretary General of the AfCFTA Secretariat, His Excellency Wamkele Mene. With resounding joy, we welcome the Deputy Speaker of the Parliament of Egypt and founder of the Cleopatra Group Egypt, the Honorable Mohammed Abu El Enin. It will be remiss of me not to acknowledge honorable ministers of state from across the continent and the diaspora, the chair and the board of the Africa Prosperity Network, the dean and members of the diplomatic community, leaders of global and regional development and finance organizations, business leaders from the private and public sectors, captains of industry, our esteemed speakers, panelists and moderators, executives from government departments and agencies, civil society organizations, members of the academia and the press, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. We say welcome and thank you for augmenting this event with your presence. This opening ceremony has 5 brief statements culminating in the keynote and official opening to be done by the President of our Republic. Thereafter, we shall move into a high-level session on doing business differently. What we see here today is as a result of careful planning, but most importantly, a heart for the motherland, Africa, to change her from one of poverty alleviation to prosperity accentuation. Help me celebrate a great son of the soil, the executive chairman and founder of the Africa Prosperity Network, yours and mine, Mr. Gabi Asare Otre Dako. We're proud of you. We say congratulations for doing it yet again. Welcoming us officially, please make welcome the acting CEO of the Africa Prosperity Network Secretariat, Mr. Njak Kane.
Your Excellency, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, President of the Republic of Ghana. Your Excellencies, Heads of States and Representatives of Heads of States, Honorable Ministers from across the continent, Heads of Regional Economic Communities, Senior Officials of the Africa Union Commission and the United Nations system, members of the Diplomatic Corps, renowned executive officers and business leaders across the continent, distinguished invited guests gathered for this event, and to our media partners. All protocol observed. I'm truly honored to kickstart this transformative event. A warm and hearty welcome. Today, we gather not just as leaders and as individuals, but as architects of change, committed to shaping the future of our beloved continent, Africa. In the spirit of unity and collaboration, let us embrace the diversity of thought that defines Africa. Our shared vision for prosperity is rooted in harnessing the unique strengths of each nation gathered here today. through meaningful dialogues over the next 3 days. Starting today, we will define our Africa focusing on the theme, delivering prosperity in Africa, produce, add value, trade. At Africa Prosperity Network, we're extremely proud and excited for the second time to be at the forefront of such a momentous transformative event, which we firmly believe will forge partnerships, inspire innovation, and pave the way for sustainable growth. We therefore present to you 8 inspirational panel sessions, which will speak to the pressing challenges we face while celebrating the successes and countless opportunities that lie ahead. Africa's potential is limitless, and the conversation we will engage in here will fuel the engine of progress. Whether it's about how we do business differently and add value to what we produce, how we unleash Africa's food and agribusiness potential, get Africa to be truly part of the global value chain of its natural resources, accelerate inter-Africa trade to enhance transportation and logistics, provide critical enablers for single market success, leveraging infrastructure, innovation and technology, provide strategic and sustainable finance for investment in infrastructure, provide advancement in technology, foster entrepreneurship, address social economic disparities. We should remain committed to charting a course that benefits to all Africans. I encourage you to participate actively, share your insights, and forge connections that will transcend this forum. The outcome of these 3 days of dialogues should echo in our government policies, in our boardrooms, in our classrooms, and must impact the life of communities across Africa, contributing to a legacy of shared prosperity for generations to come. I express my deepest gratitude, Your Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo Dankwa, President of the Republic of Ghana, to Your Excellencies, Head of States and representatives of Head of States for traveling to our beautiful Ghana. Thank you, honorable ministers across the continent, all members and representatives of our partner AU and United Nations organizations, to the members of the diplomatic corps and to our traditional leaders, to our renowned chief executive officers and business leaders around the continent, distinguished invited guests gathered for this event. From the truly visionary founder of Africa Prosperity Network and from the organizers of the Africa Prosperity Dialogues, a special thank to our partners, sponsors, panelists, moderators, and each one of you for your commitment to the Africa Prosperity Dialogues. Together, let us propel Africa towards a future defined by prosperity through production, value addition, and trade. À tous mes frères et sœurs, ici dans la pièce, mais également à ceux qui nous entendent à travers le continent, je vous souhaite la bienvenue et vous dire qu'il faut retenir ce qui va se passer dans les jours qui viennent. Je vous remercie tous. I thank you so much.
We're grateful to you, Mr. Njak Kane, for setting the tone for these 3 inspirational days where we shall deliberate and arrive at fruitful conclusions. We're encouraged by the support of our lead sponsor, the 3I Summit, organized by the Bank of Ghana, the Development Bank Ghana, in partnership with Elevandi, a global platform initiated by the Monetary Authority of Singapore. Here to speak to us is one of the organizers, Development Bank. Make welcome the CEO, Mr. Kwamina Duka.
Thank you. His Excellency, the President of the Republic, honorable ministers, distinguished guests, and fellow advocates of... Good morning. As we convene for this African Prosperity Dialogue, we are reminded of our collective resolve to enact the future of Africa's thriving economy. At Development Bank Ghana, the prescient brainchild of our president, we are proud to be at the vanguard of this transformation, having already directed over just under 1 billion cedis into the private sector, strengthening over 80 businesses, and fostering the creation of more than 6,000 jobs, with 38% empowering women, while also generating substantial foreign exchange revenue exceeding $50 million. So our focus extends beyond immediate financial inputs, and we wish to emphasize the output that our collaborative yield with partners such as the African Prosperity Dialogue. We are committed to forging long-term bankable deals that guarantee not only sustainable growth, but also take us from building traditional models into new models that really focus on profitability. We want to prioritize the lasting impact and value creation. And in our journey to de-risk the financing landscape, we are building the capacities of financial institutions to venture into sectors previously deemed too risky and empowering local businesses to embrace innovation and scalability. We're working together with the Bank of Ghana and we're working together with the Monetary Authority of Singapore to put together a collaboration and a platform that is focused towards building financial inclusion and literacy across Africa, providing secure digital platform that ensures businesses with reliable financial tools and services. And this is the scenario which we share with the African Prosperity Dialogue. Imagine an entrepreneur leveraging our platform to gain swift access to financial products and services from across the continent. There we build through trusted credentials. Entrepreneurs can seamlessly engage with other financial institutions in both Asia and Africa to bring in fostering confidence and transparency in every transaction. This is really the embodiment of the African Prosperity Dialogue's vision, creating a seamless integrated marketplace underpinned by trust and digital innovation. And this is the focus of the 3I Africa initiative, which will be a follow-on from this dialogue, where we'll be looking to bring in innovation, investment, and impact, the 3 important I's. We are championing digital transformation in collaboration with our partners from Asia. And this strategic partnership fortifies our aim to unveil Africa's digital prowess and economic potential through primarily fintech, but also agri-tech, and also through the new and different ways in which we are building profitability. So the African Prosperity Dialogue is a testament to this dedication to action, charting a course for the future where our economic actions are as decisive and impactful as our ambitions. As we discuss, deliberate, and determine the path forward, let us do so with the knowledge that through collaboration, innovation, and focused investment, we will unlock a new era of prosperity for Africa. Thank you.
We're grateful to you, Mr. Kwame Naduka, CEO of the Development Bank and representing the 3I Africa Summit. The KGL Group stands tall as a human-centered organization, bringing bespoke tech solutions to industry and designing progressive ways by which people can achieve the best of their potential. Since its establishment, the KGL, through its foundation, has sought to innovate the current system of philanthropy by providing sustainable social intervention programs in sports, health, education, culture, and the arts in Ghana. We make welcome for statements the Executive Chairman of the KGL Group and the Chairman of the Ghana Investment Promotion Center, Mr. Alex Dade.
Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Ghana, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, Your Excellency, the former President of Mozambique, President Chissano, distinguished representatives of government institutions, ministers of state, members of the diplomatic corps, distinguished panelists, ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor to address such distinguished leaders committed to advancing Africa's prosperity. Our gathering here underscores a shared commitment to propel Africa to greater heights, envisioning a continent that harnesses its potential for the benefit of its people. I would like, first of all, to express my profound gratitude to the African Prosperity Network for putting this great initiative together, which through critical dialogue serves as a catalyst for transforming the way we perceive and approach key facets of our economic integration. The chosen theme for this summit, Delivering Prosperity in Africa, Produce, Add Value, Trade, must transcend being a mere slogan and truly serve as a rallying call for transformation. It should ignite a sense of urgency and inspire effective actions towards value creation and trade. This platform should not be limited to only discussions alone. It should serve as a dynamic hub of ideas and actions that will shape our future as a continent. Moreover, it is crucial that the private sector takes center stage in driving our economic growth, making this summit an ideal space for their vital contribution. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to leverage the African Prosperity Dialogues platform to highlight a few policy initiatives that I believe are of utmost significance. These initiatives serve as a crucial foundation for substantial topics that will be discussed during this morning's summit. These are private-public partnerships, diaspora inclusion, and thirdly, the alternative approach to investment promotion. Your Excellency, for Africa to experience real economic growth, the private sector must take lead, thrive, and also be resilient. I have always maintained that governments do not create wealth, the private sector does. And therefore, incentivizing the private sector is the surest way to achieve sustainable growth. The role of government is clear, creating a conducive environment and policies to stimulate growth. Through public collaborations with private entities, the government can leverage funding, expertise, and innovation to accelerate infrastructural development and other critical projects. This will not only facilitate economic connectivity, but also enhance the overall quality of life of our people. Your Excellency, allow me to illustrate the tremendous benefits of public-private partnerships through the collaborative alliance between my own company, the KGL Group, and the National Lottery Authority in the lottery sector in Ghana. This exemplary partnership serves as testament to how PPPs can drive economic growth and rejuvenate critical sectors. The National Lottery Authority has witnessed remarkable transformation and resurgence of its fortunes as a result of this dynamic collaboration. By harnessing the expertise, innovation, and resources of a private entity like the KGL Group, alongside the regulatory oversight of NLA, the lottery sector has experienced an extraordinary revival. One outstanding achievement of this collaboration, Mr. President, is KGL's substantial contribution to the revenue of the National Lottery Authority. The fact that KGL now accounts for over 80% of NLA's revenue underscores the efficacy of this partnership in generating financial success. KGL's infusion of funding advanced technology, marketing strategies, and operational efficiency into the lottery sector, complemented by the regulatory oversight and public trust associated with government institutions like the NLA, has been key to this success. Permit me once again to highlight another case study to cushion my argument on public-private partnership. Your Excellency, distinguished guest, KGL Group's partnership with the Ministry of Fisheries and Aquaculture to implement an efficient fuel management system for the premix sector with no financial cost to the public purse underscores the versatility and impact of public-private partnerships. Your Excellency, today I stand before you as a passionate advocate for the inclusion of the diaspora in our journey towards socio-economic transformation. Approximately 35 years ago, I made a decision to leave my homeland Ghana and venture to the United Kingdom with a clear purpose in mind: to acquire valuable skills, knowledge, and financial resources that would ultimately contribute to the development and progress of my beloved country, Ghana. During my time in the United Kingdom, I not only sent financial support to my friends and family back home, but I also invested in numerous impactful projects and businesses within Ghana. These endeavors were fueled by my determination to fulfill the promise I made to myself all those years ago. And finally, 8 years ago, the realization of this vow came to fruition as I returned to Ghana and established the KGL Group of companies. Our journey towards success has been marked by significant milestones, most notably being recognized by the GIPC as the 11th most ranked company in the GIPC Club 100 event held in November 2023. These achievements are testament to our unwavering dedication, effective corporate governance practices, prudent resource allocation, and our exceptional team, among others. At the core of our ethos lies the belief that the diaspora, with their unique expertise, experiences, and resources, have a pivotal role to play in driving socio-economic transformation of our country. We firmly stand behind the principles of inclusivity, recognizing that by embracing and integrating the diaspora into our national fabric, we can unlock greater potential and accelerate our progress. Ladies and gentlemen, my journey is not unique. This is the journey of most African diasporans, my fellow compatriots. As an ardent advocate for diaspora inclusion, I wholeheartedly support any endeavor that mobilizes the Africans in the diaspora for the purpose of driving our socio-economic transformation. I strongly believe that this inclusivity represents a forward-thinking strategy, harnessing external resources and expertise to spur national development. I have long been a proponent of diaspora direct investment as a preferred option to foreign direct investment. In fact, the World Bank estimates that remittances to Africa in 2022 exceeded $100 billion, surpassing the official development assistance, ODA, and foreign direct investment, FDI. This reinforces the immense potential and leveraging the financial contribution of the diaspora community. Moreover, the task of marketing the continent should not be left in the hands of only policy makers and technocrats. We should utilize the skills of investors and diasporans who have accomplished a lot on the ground. After all, who better to market the continent than those who have achieved much themselves? Their experiences are more convincing because they've walked the path that the potential investors are seeking to walk. As we move forward, I invite you to join me in championing diaspora inclusion as a crucial pillar for our socio-economic transformation. Your Excellency, one of the challenges that African countries like Ghana encounter is the depreciation of their currency due to repatriation of earnings by foreign investors. To address this issue, I would like to propose two potential solutions for consideration. Firstly, we need to adopt a new approach to our investment strategy. It is essential that African governments incentivize African conglomerates like KGL Group to establish presence in developed markets. These conglomerates should be encouraged to acquire stakes in raw material producing companies in the developed markets, thereby enabling them to benefit from the value-added creation. The significant profits generated from these companies can be repatriated back home. For instance, what stops Ghana Cocoa Board from investing in Nestle and most of these multinational companies? Cocoa Board, Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire earn just less than 10% of the value chain of 140 billion. However, through these initiatives, they can significantly increase their share of the industry by strategically participating in the processing of this cocoa and producing of chocolates in the developed world. By embracing this approach, these countries can also address currency depreciations, but also foster economic growth, create employment opportunities, and maximize abundant resources. Secondly, it is equally important to incorporate and enforce a policy that encourages and requires foreign companies to invest portion of their earnings in Ghana. At KGL Capital, the venture capital arm of the KGL Group, we take pride in dedicating a significant portion of our earnings towards supporting local businesses and entrepreneurs. This approach should be adopted by any forward-looking foreign investor, as it helps build local capacity and bring stability to the local currency market. Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, the time for talk is over. The African Prosperity Dialogues are a call for action and a blueprint for the future we choose to create. It is time for us to roll up our sleeves, unleash our collective genius, and build a continent where prosperity isn't just a dream, but a thriving reality. Thank you very much for listening.
Mr. Alex Dade and his KGL Group stand tall as examples of what a model Ghanaian and a model Ghanaian group of companies should be. Please, a round of applause once again. We're delighted to receive the warm thoughts of the President of the African Development Bank, Dr. Akiumi Adesina. Although he's not here with us in person, he's represented by his Vice President in charge of the private sector, infrastructure, and industrialization. Make welcome Mr. Solomon Quino.
Good morning, Your Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo. Good morning, Your Excellency former President of Mozambique, Chisano. Also, my own Excellency from the African Union Commission, His Excellency Wamkele Mene. All protocols observed. Gabby has put me on the spot. I was not scheduled to make any presentation, but this is such an important event. I took him up on his offer for me to make some brief remarks on behalf of President Adesina. First of all, Gabby, congratulations on this dialogue. We have Davos to talk about world issues, and now we have the Africa Prosperity Dialogue to talk about our own Pan-African issues. And your theme for this year, which is produce, add value, trade, is so important, and it's actually the thrust of the African Development Bank's strategy in the private sector. So let me just expand on this a little bit. I have been investing in Africa and globally for the last 25 years. The game changer for us as investors and also for the African private sector is the African Continental Free Trade Area. So that's why I would take His Excellency Wamkele's calls at any time of the day or even in the evening, because it's such an important framework. Investing in private sector in one of 54 markets is actually highly risky. But investing in private sector, especially what we call African champions, who have the ability to work cross-border, begins to really de-risk projects and add value to Africa. So for us, we focus on the African champions. African champions are companies that really work cross-border. We want, as an institution, working with the likes of the CFTA Secretariat, working with the likes of the Prosperity Dialogue, working with other parties to create the enabling environment for African private sector to truly trade beyond borders. For us, we've prioritized where we see Africa as being competitive. In the agriculture processing space, that is key, because even with smallholder farming, we're able to produce relatively competitively, but we can even improve the efficiencies, especially if we use technology. So agro-processing is very key. Likewise, the cotton belt is mostly in Africa, so cotton to textiles to garments is also a very key area for us. We have the critical minerals, lithium in northern Ghana, lithium in Zambia, and Zambia and the DRC. We have great industrial capacity in South Africa and in Egypt. Let's establish the regional value chains. We shouldn't look at things really on an import substitution basis. Let's look at the value chains across Africa. Then we also have what we call the fourth industrial revolution, technology, digitization, the ability to actually leapfrog the current production efficiencies that we have. And then lastly, we all learned from COVID that Africa is really at the bottom of the value chain when it comes to pharmaceutical drugs, vaccines, etc. For us, these are the value chains we've prioritized, and this is where we're going to look to scale up our support. And don't forget, a lot of SMEs occur in the corporate value chains, and we're going to support both corporates, we're going to support SMEs as well, because SMEs are really the greatest creators of jobs, and we estimate across Africa is 80 to 90%. Now, regional integration is not going to happen without all the enablers. And so, Your Excellency, thank you very much for really supporting us on the Lagos-Abidjan corridor, and really supporting the decision for Alcoma to be based in Abidjan, which has now begun to expedite that process. If we can actually get the Lagos-Abidjan corridor working, the regional integration that would happen, the impact on businesses, because 80% of, West Africa's GDP goes through that corridor. So we thank you for, supporting these initiatives that would really lead to regional connectivity, so we can really deliver a prosperous Africa. Africa's private sector, Africa's, what we call the African champions are the ones we're going to support. Thank you very much.
We're grateful to you, Mr. Solomon Queno, Vice President at the AfDB. Do convey to the President our warm delight for all that he does together with his organization for our beloved continent. Clearly, he shouldered this great continental quest of ours with such distinction and determination. Ladies and gentlemen, Africa, rise and celebrate your own, the Secretary General of the AfCFTA, Wamkele Mene, Your Excellency.
Your Excellency, President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, President of the Fourth Republic of Ghana, Your Excellency President Chissano, former President of the Republic of Mozambique, the Deputy Speaker of the House of Parliament of Egypt, honorable ministers that are here with us, the Chairman of the Africa Prosperity Network, Mr. Ochere Dako, CEOs, business leaders, leaders from development finance institutions, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is a pleasure to be with you once again for the second edition of the Africa Prosperity Dialogues. And I want to join the Vice President of the African Development Bank in congratulating the Chairman, Mr. Ochere Dako, for the vision and the intellectual drive to convene us yet again today. And the AfCFTA Secretariat is extremely proud. We're very proud to partner with the Africa Prosperity Network and the Presidency of Ghana to ensure that as Africans, we begin the process of telling our own story, narrating our own challenges, challenges which I believe are actually opportunities. The theme for this year could not be more appropriate: delivering prosperity in Africa, production, add value, and trade. And of course, the African Continental Free Trade Area is precisely the instrument to deliver upon this promise of an Africa that produces what it consumes. Over the last 3.5 years that the AfCFTA Secretariat has been in Ghana, we have recorded tremendous success in ensuring that the vision of our founding fathers does indeed become a reality. Trade under the AfCFTA has begun. We have a program that we initiated last year, which is designed and intended to see the realization of the trade that all of us want to see on the African continent. As we speak, we have developed the AfCFTA tariff book, which enables the private sector and economic operators across the African continent to determine with certainty the tariffs that apply to the products that they want to export. We also have the Rules of Origin Manual. For the very first time, as the African continent, we are able to apply rules of origin that are harmonized, that enable an exporter from Kenya to export to Malawi with a great deal of certainty about the market that they are exporting to. The private sector is, of course, an important part of the work that we are doing, and indeed a pillar of implementation of the AfCFTA. As the chairman said before me, it is not governments that trade, it is the private sector that trades. And that is why we have developed a private sector strategy, identifying sectors such as agriculture, the automotive sector, pharmaceuticals, transport and logistics, which combined create and establish a market of $130 billion for investing in the value chains that the Vice President of the African Development Bank alluded to earlier. We recognize, of course, that many challenges remain. That is why the partnerships that we have developed with the Africa Business Council, with the African Development Bank, with Afrexim Bank, to ensure that we mobilize the necessary resources so that this dream does indeed become a reality. Last year, as you may be aware, we signed an MOU with the United Bank of Africa, UBA, where they committed to mobilize up to $7 billion to invest in private sector, particularly small medium enterprises, to advance these very objectives of the AfCFTA of enabling small medium enterprises, the processing of and value addition of goods that are produced in Africa. Before that, we signed an MOU with the Equity Group where they also committed to mobilize up to $7.5 billion in the processing of minerals on the African continent. Much needs to be done. We have, however, taken the very concrete steps of creating a single market consistent with the vision of our founding mothers and fathers as far back as May 1963 in the historic city of Addis Ababa, where they expressed a desire that one day the African continent must be a single market, must trade using local currency, must have a single currency, and we have taken concrete steps towards that particular vision. We have established protocols, such as a protocol on investment, to protect not primarily foreign investors, but to protect African investors. We have established an intellectual property rights regime, a competition policy, and soon we will conclude protocols on women and youth in trade, very critical for inclusion. And we will also conclude a protocol on digital trade later this month. The protocol on digital trade positions us to harness the benefits of Africa's digital economy, to ensure inclusion, particularly inclusion of young Africans who are at the cutting edge of digital innovation and who require the regulatory support for them to thrive in Africa's digital market. May I end, if I may, with a quote and words from the former president of Burkina Faso, President Thomas Isidore Sankara, and I quote, "We must dare to invent the future. We must dare to invent the future," end quote. And so today and over the next 2 days, as Africans, we will be gathered here to invent our future and to deploy instruments that enable that future, instruments such as the AfCFTA, that enable that future to become a reality. I want to thank all of you for your attention.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the Secretary General of the AfCFTA Secretariat, His Excellency Wamkele Mene. Thank you for those warm thoughts. You show us that the optimist will build the aeroplane, but the pessimist will build the parachute. All the same, they all work together for the same goal. We're joined by the President of the Republic of Gambia, here represented by his Minister for Trade, Industry, and Labor Relations. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome the Honorable Boubacar Osmanu Diouf. Thank you very much for joining us. Here to deliver a statement is a celebrated African statesman, former President of the Republic of Mozambique, and now Chairperson of the African Forum. Make welcome His Excellency Joaquim Alberto Chissano.
Your Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, President of the Republic of Ghana, Executive Chairman of Africa Prosperity Network, Mr. Gabi Dako, Excellencies, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, I would like to thank Mr. Gabi Dako for inviting me to participate at this important dialogue. I am here as an African freedom fighter and a former head of state of Mozambique. But more importantly, I am representing the Africa Forum for all former African heads of state and government and other leaders. By other leaders, we may name is a way of a souvenir, Boutros Ghali, Kofi Annan, Salim Salim, Abubakar Njai, Eteki Bumwa, Edem Kojo, among many others. The Forum for Former Africa Heads of State and Government, commonly known as the Africa Forum, was established on the 11th January 2006 in Maputo, Republic of Mozambique. The Africa Forum constitutes a network of former African heads of state and government and the other African leaders. It is essentially designed to support the implementation of the broad objectives of the African Union and African Union Development Agency, NEPAD, at national, sub-regional, and regional levels. The mission of the Africa Forum is determined by the members' relevant first-hand African center knowledge, expertise, and experience that strive towards promoting and defending good governance, principles, and values, sustainable development, peace, security, and stability, and supporting the African Union and AUDA NEPAD. The Africa Forum works closely with the African Union and support the effective implementation of their policies and objectives. In this regard, at a consultation meeting held in South Africa, December 2014, at the invitation of the chairperson of the African Union Commission, Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, the members of the Africa Forum made a commitment to use their gravitas, experience, and moral authority to effectively contribute to the realization of the aspirations of the African Union Agenda 2063, where their role includes: one, the preventative diplomacy, mediation in delicate situations such as cases of unconstitutional change of governments, the core activities of Africa Forum are providing a vehicle for the forum's members with their collective first-hand African knowledge, expertise, and experience to have greater impact towards achieving prosperity in Africa. Your Excellencies, standing on existing protocol, I stand before you with a deep sense of duty and an enormous amount of optimism. Because I can see here now the fruits of all the dreams, or as it was said here, the creation of the future. It's a creation which was started here in Ghana by Nkrumah, but the group of Monrovia, by the other groups, Casablanca. It's a dream which was started in Abuja in 1979 until African Union was converted into, OAU was converted into African Union. So what do we see today? From what I heard here, this is my first time to participate in this dialogue. What I heard is that these are the fruits which we are harvesting from what was planted within difficulties. And this is what we are seeing. That's why I'm full of optimism that the prosperity of Africa will be a real prosperity. We'll see, speaking about potential wealth, and we say Africa is rich potentially, all the time potentially. We want Africa to be really rich, and that its richness is profiting everybody without leaving anyone behind. In recognition of our shared successes, challenges, and opportunities, we find ourselves at the intersection of history and destiny. The dialogue we will engage in over the next 3 days, beginning today, holds the power to continue the great transformation taking place on our continent. As the head of the Forum for Former Heads of State and Governments in Africa, this is by no means a small feat, and I would like us all to keep that vividly in mind as we dialogue. It is us who shape the narrative of Africa's future, and as we embrace the benefits the African Continental Free Trade Area offers to us, we will build a future defined by our determination to produce not just for production's sake, but to feed our people, reduce hunger, increase our resilience to climate change, and to ensure that every nation in Africa becomes food secure. We will, by determination, add value to our natural resource wealth and increase our trade across the continent with a push to obtain more inclusivity. This is the determination reflected in the theme for this year's dialogue: delivering prosperity in Africa, produce, add value, trade. I believe we must leverage the rich diversity of our cultures, experiences, and expertise in this gathering to forge meaningful solutions and outcomes in the next 3 days. Let us keep in mind the aspirations of the countless individuals across our continent who look to us for leadership. Their hopes and dreams must guide our discussions, inspiring us to work tirelessly towards a greater future and fostering a renewed sense of unity that will propel Africa into an era of more prosperity. Your Excellency, President Nana Akufo-Addo, thank you for hosting us. I applaud the organizers of this event, the Africa Prosperity Network, and the Africa Continental Free Trade Area for bringing us together. There is no doubt in my mind that we are making indelible footprints in the history of our continent's growth and transformation to produce and value trade. May the African Prosperity Dialogue become a sustained forum for constructive discourse and a catalyst for transformative action. Together, let us navigate the path towards a brighter, more equitable, and interconnected Africa. I thank you.
A duty well discharged for his motherland, Mozambique, and for the continent, a gift that keeps on giving. Ladies and gentlemen, His Excellency Joaquim Alberto Chissano. Please, a round of applause. We thank you for your wisdom and for all that you call on us to do. We acknowledge with gratitude also the President of the Africa Business Council, Dr. Amani Asfor. Thank you for joining us. A round of applause. Shortly, we get to hear from the President of our Republic as he delivers the keynote and officially declares the summit duly open. But for now, allow me the pleasure of acknowledging to you our numerous sponsors and partners who have helped us to make this year's event a reality.
The Africa Prosperity Network shares a vision to promote Africa beyond aid. Through critical dialogues, actionable policies and partnerships, they aim to reshape the thinking of leaders across the continent, guiding them to take bold steps in trade, commerce, national economies, political conduct, and culture to bring prosperity to the people of Africa. The 3I Africa Summit, presented by Development Bank of Ghana, the Monetary Authority of Singapore, through AfDB, is set to ignite innovation and harness the impact of fintechs in Africa's digital financial opportunities in May 2024. But that's not all. We are excited to announce a strategic partnership with the African Prosperity Network. 3I Africa Summit provides a global platform for Africa's innovative fintech solutions, facilitating a space where sustainable and revolutionary financial sector initiatives can flourish. Through our collaboration with APN, we aim to create an environment that not only fosters innovation, but also encourages strategic partnerships that go beyond borders, connecting the vibrant tech ecosystems of Africa and Asia together. We can really amplify the voice of Africa and showcase our potential to the world. Ladies and gentlemen, as we witness this historic collaboration between 3I Africa and the Africa Prosperity Network, we invite you to be part of our transformative journey. Together, we can unleash Africa's fintech and digital economic potential, creating a future of prosperity for generations to come. To all the heads of state and business leaders who have traveled far and wide to be part of this historic event, I say Akwaba. See you at Africa Prosperity Dialogues, and together we can deliver prosperity in Africa as we explore ways to enhance production and add value and trade our extensive resources. Thank you.
inspiration behind Planet One Group is our philosophy from imagination to impact. This principle drives us to continually innovate creatively and efficiently, thereby delivering solutions which positively impact the lives of people around the world. Planet One Group has made positive impacts on developing societies through our innovations in education, agriculture, energy, and natural resources, sectors which play pivotal roles in laying the foundation for the rapid growth and prosperity of nations. Today, we're proud to have delivered successful societal outcomes across North America, United Kingdom, Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. Education. Planet One Education enables governments to bring nationwide transformation to their education systems. Its solutions provide a better future across the globe by implementing innovations for the entire education spectrum, from K-12 to employability and higher education. Our interventions address the key educative challenges through accessibility and inclusion, increasing capacity and enrollment, enhanced learning experience, improving employability by leveraging our holistic implementation model involving infrastructure development, technology-enabled teaching and learning solutions, new age content delivery, and competency-based training solutions. Agriculture. The ability to transform agriculture into a productive and thriving pillar of an economy is at the heart of our agriculture offering, which reinvigorates the entire agriculture value chain. Planet One helps governments create well-equipped, technologically advanced facilities that support many small and marginal farmers, improving their yields and incomes. By developing sustainable farm service centers, we empower these marginal farmers across the entire value chain of agriculture, training them in resilient production and processing techniques, providing access to modern agricultural mechanization, increasing coverage of storage facilities, empowering farmers with provision of processing facilities, and securing long-term offtake financing. Natural resources. Planet One Natural Resources is a global mining company focusing on future-enabling metals and minerals for a cleaner, greener world and to meet the everyday demands of billions of consumers. Engineering, procurement, and construction. Our EPC and Engineering Solutions business unit spearheads sustainable infrastructure development projects in various countries. Our highly experienced professional teams execute large infrastructure projects from ideation to commissioning on a turnkey basis with single-source responsibility. We take pride in our impeccable delivery track record with various governments worldwide.
Ladies and gentlemen, the project has been completed. It has been delivered. I'm happy to state that in spite of the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic, Planet One Group has successfully completed the project on time.
Positive social impact and sustained growth are the heart of each project that Planet One undertakes.
Recognizing Africa Prosperity Dialogues 2024's strategic, institutional, and knowledge partners. United Nations in Ghana, World Food Programme WFP, United Nations Development Programme UNDP, Arab Bank for Economic Development in Africa BADEA, Africa Business Council AFBC, Afrexim Bank, African Development Bank AfDB, United Nations Economic Commission on Africa ECA, Africa America Institute AAI, Africa Soft Power, Oxford Business Group OBG, Ghana Investment Promotion Center GIPC. Recognizing our lead sponsors, 3i Summit 2024, Planet One, KGL Group, MTN, Arab Bank for Economic Development in Africa BADEA, Ghana Maritime, Central Oil Refinery, Tetracol. Recognizing our sponsors. Recognizing our media partners.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for all our partners and sponsors. Without alignment and unity of purpose, particularly between Africa's political elites and entrepreneurs and business leaders, the efforts of intra-Africa trade and bringing prosperity to Africa will all amount to an exercise in futility. These are the words of the man who is the wind beneath our wings. I give to you the President of our Republic, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo.
Your Excellency, Joaquim Chissano, former President of the Republic of Mozambique and Chairperson of the Africa Forum, the Deputy Speaker of the Parliament of Egypt, Secretary General of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area Secretariat, representative of the President of the African Development Bank, Chairperson of the Board of the Ghana Investment Promotion Center, founder of the African Prosperity Network, the acting CEO of the Africa Prosperity Network Secretariat, business leaders and delegates, members of the diplomatic corps, fellow Africans, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome all of you to Ghana and to Peduase Lodge for the second edition of the Africa Prosperity Dialogues. Looking at the impressive list of African personalities who have come here to the President's official retreat in the serene hills of Aburi, I'm mightily encouraged that Africa now has a private sector that is ready, deliberate, and eager to see that the 60-year-old dream of a united Africa manifests. The difference, perhaps, between then and today is that the focus is on an area where can there be no debate: economic integration. How we facilitate the free movement of people, goods, and services across this vast and resourceful mass, Africa, is what we must devote our energies to. Ladies and gentlemen, we all know that Africa is blessed. Africa is not a poor continent. In fact, she's too rich to be poor. Our continent has every natural resource imaginable: oil, gas, minerals, and an abundance of sunlight. We have some 65% of all arable land available to feed 9 billion people globally by 2050. And our continent is home to the most youthful population in the world. We have everything we need to transform Africa into a global powerhouse of the future. We must therefore remind ourselves consistently of the prospects she has, and our individual and collective responsibility to turn prospects into productivity that can generate prosperity for our peoples. I'm excited and proud that once again I've had the privilege to host the Africa Prosperity Dialogues, an excellent initiative aimed at facilitating understanding, dialogue, and commitment to the Africa Continental Free Trade Area initiative. I congratulate the organizers, the Africa Prosperity Network and its founder, for their vision and their ability to attract this formidable lineup of strategic partners should leave no one in doubt that this is a project that requires all the support we can muster. What the Africa Prosperity Dialogues have provided is a unique platform dedicated to mobilizing Africa's energetic private sector to own and drive the fulfillment of the promises that the AfCFTA presents. The theme for this year's dialogues speak directly to what we have to do if we're to make the AfCFTA meaningful. Without the capacity to industrialize, add value to our raw materials, and invest to build the social, digital, economic, and physical infrastructure that will connect our peoples and businesses to customers across Africa, intra-Africa trade will remain at the negligible lows that it has always been. Indeed, Africa accounts for only 3% of global trade, and intra-Africa trade is one of the lowest of any region globally. This is largely due to the colonial economic model, characterized by small individual economies, fragmented and disconnected regional markets, over reliance on the export of primary commodities, and the presence of low productive capacities, which have been well in existence for over a century. By fostering intra-Africa trade, the AfCFTA is going to ensure that it continues to create opportunities for businesses to expand beyond their borders, driving economic growth and creating a more integrated and interconnected continent. To unlock the full potential of trade for prosperity, let us prioritize the development of efficient transportation and logistics infrastructure, streamline trade processes, and embrace digital technologies that facilitate cross-border transactions without the need to depend on outside currencies. These dialogues must emphasize that Africa has to go heavy on the promotion of sustainable farming practices, coupled with targeted investments in infrastructure for innovation and technology, especially in agribusiness and industry that boost production, whilst ensuring the resilience of our agricultural sector in the face of evolving global challenges and climate change. These dialogues have to find ways to realize the commitments that have been made loudly and clearly for African governments to deepen their resolve in achieving the decisions reached in the compact. It must be representative of all sectors needed to carry Africa and ensure that the growth targets that are attained are sustainable, irrespective of future global challenges. These dialogues have to examine critically the responsibilities and expectations of the private sector and demand same of the public sector, and assess how both can work as partners to achieve the Africa we want. We must strengthen our resolve to work hand in hand with our governments in free and fair democratic systems of governance that promote safe and sound legal and institutional frameworks. Let us work to get the buy-in of the small trader, builder, farmer, and seamstress, and make them believe that having a single market can benefit them as well. As we delve into delivering prosperity in Africa, produce, add value, trade, the theme of this year's dialogues, let us embark on a journey that goes beyond rhetoric, transcending dialogue into actionable plans for transformative change. I know you came here not just to talk, but to spark action. I also know that for many of you, you had to acquire a visa to come to this event, even though special arrangements for this conference reduced the visa acquisition fee by 50%, and you were thus able to receive your visa on arrival. The government of Ghana is committed to ensuring visa-free for all Africans. For all Africans traveling to our country, and the process has begun to get the policy implemented this year. Before I go, once again, I welcome you all warmly to Ghana, the host of the AfCFTA Secretariat. Please enjoy our very warm hospitality, and let this visit translate into a compact document that heralds an era of shared prosperity for all of us in Africa. May God bless the Africa Prosperity Dialogues and us all, and may God bless our homeland Ghana and make her great and strong. I thank you for your attention and declare this year's second edition of the Africa Prosperity Dialogues duly open.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the President of our Republic, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. What more can we say, Mr. President? You are a shining example of what a true African is supposed to be, and we take inspiration from all the words that you've shared with us. Shortly, we get to witness the first panel for today, but allow me now to walk you through a very short documentary we've put together as a precursor to that. Please lend your attention to the screen.
The Africa Prosperity Network, in collaboration with the KGL Group, present the Imagine Project, Transforming the Continent. In the heart of Africa lies a transformative initiative being led by the Africa Prosperity Dialogues in capturing the essence of the African dream. It aspires to propel the continent towards prosperity through actionable policies and bankable projects, empowering Africa beyond aid. Imagine policies fostering raw material transformation within Africa, envisioning specialized regional production and manufacturing hubs, fueling our integration into global value chains. With 60% of the world's most fertile yet uncultivated soils, its future is boundless. The continent's agricultural output is anticipated to soar from $280 billion annually to a staggering $1 trillion by the year 2030. Picture Africa refining its resources, oil refineries in Nigeria, platinum in Zimbabwe, copper in Zambia, lithium in Ghana, coltan in the Democratic Republic of Congo, bauxite refineries in Guinea, leveraging industrial advancements to harness the potential of our natural resources effectively. Imagine an interconnected rail network, reducing logistics costs and promoting seamless travel across Africa. Imagine an advanced infrastructure propelling intra-Africa trade. The Imagine project emphasizes STEM education and interoperable systems, where roaming charges are a thing of the past and common payment platform facilitates transactions wherever you are. It envisions regional hubs for electrification, connecting landlocked countries to coastal areas through an African rail network. Picture Africa with its own financial governance, rating agencies, and continental stock exchanges, paving the way for self-sustained growth and reducing reliance on foreign investments. Imagine an Africa with seamless financial transactions, common mobile money platforms, and a unified banking system promoting financial inclusion across the continent. The Imagine project envisions policies supporting African manufacturers, democratizing central bank digital currencies for intra-African trade, and prioritizing access to open markets. Africa's renaissance is underway, a continent unlocking its vast potential across agriculture, mining, technology, oil and gas, industrialization, youth empowerment, and financial sectors. The Imagine project, a realistic vision charting Africa's journey towards a prosperous future. Let's unleash Africa's prosperity and shape the continent's destiny. Delivering prosperity in Africa, produce, add value, trade.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we delve into the first panel for today. Make welcome our panelists, the Special Advisor to the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria on Ease of Doing Business, Dr. Jumoke Oduwole. The head of Sub-Saharan Africa, Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, Madam Yvonne Ike. The President and CEO of the Whitaker Group, Madam Rosa Whitaker. The President of the Africa Business Council and Advisory Council member of the APN, Dr. Amani Asfour. The Senior Vice President of the MTN Group, Mr. Ebenezer Asante. The CEO of the Ghana Investment Promotion Council, Mr. Yofi Grant. And the moderator, the United Nations Resident Coordinator to Ghana, His Excellency Charles Abani. As a prelude to their discussion, we shall have a context setting to be done by the President and CEO of the Igre Coffee. Make welcome Madame Bridget Harrington.
Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. This morning I'm here to speak to you in regards to what this forum is all about, which is intra-Africa trade. And the reason I'm standing in front of you is because Igre Coffee Company was one of the first companies to trade under the Guided Trade Initiative of the AfCFTA. Before we get into that, I want to delve into how do we move this needle forward. If we look at the raw materials that are currently being exported from Africa to the West, we have to look at cocoa, which represents $7.8 billion per year. And we can look at gold, which represents another $30 billion a year. And coffee, another $3.5 billion a year. And then we can't exclude shea butter or cocoa butter or timber. And if we add all of these things together, we're looking at a sum total of approximately $50 billion a year in raw materials. And so what does that mean retail? When we ask ourselves, what does adding value mean? We can look at multiplying that $50 billion by at least 10. So if we can start to process and add value to these raw materials that are currently being exported to the West, we're looking at $500 billion worth of goods, retail value, that could be sold in and amongst ourselves. Imagine what that would look like for the continent. Imagine if these products were traded within Africa. As it stands right now, once these products are exported to the West and they're processed, value is added, packaged in a lot of cases, they're sent back here. And when they're sent back here at the retail value, and then we have to pay duty, taxes, the freight, and then whoever sells them has to make an income on them. And all of this money, none of it stays here. What comes to mind for me is how do we get small, medium-sized enterprises and micro enterprises to participate in AfCFTA? If we look at the continent as a whole, 92% of the businesses on the continent are micro-sized businesses, small businesses, and medium-sized businesses. That's 44 million companies. And those 44 million companies provide 60% of the jobs on the continent. So now enter the picture, AfCFTA. What exactly is involved? How do we get these businesses to participate? Well, the first thing that we have to take into consideration is that when you talk about micro enterprises, when you talk about small businesses, and sometimes medium-sized businesses, they don't have the wherewithal or the capacity to be able to ship a container load of anything to anyone. My business falls inside of the realm of that. So when we look at how do we get the small trader to start trading, we have to take into consideration, we have to go together. And so hence, AfCFTA has come up with a model to establish AfCFTA trading companies in all of the countries who have signed and ratified the agreement. I do believe that this will assist us in trading. So when I say, what does that look like? An AfCFTA trading company would be responsible for the import and the export of all goods that trade under AfCFTA. What that does is it allows small, micro-sized businesses to come together to consolidate the shipments, to ship to one point in a country, and then to have those products advertised within those countries to the consumer base so that we can now start to replace some of the products that are on the shelves of the supermarkets and in the mom and pop stores. In order for these products to be traded, that part is easy. In order for the products to be sold to the consumer base who's currently buying milk from, let's say, France, or shea butter that left Ghana, went to the US and came back. In order to have these products sold in the individual countries, the first thing that we have to do is we have to realize and recognize that the consumer needs to know that those products are in the market. The second thing is that once the products are in the market, they have to be made available to the consumer base, which means that there has to be a venue or an avenue for that consumer to purchase that product. And once that starts to happen, then trade starts to happen. Now, when we look at this whole thing of intra-Africa trade, we also have to take into consideration the importer. And this is where AfCFTA plays a pivotal role, because what the agreement does is it allows for the import duties either over a 5-year period of time or a 10-year period of time to be reduced to zero. How does that benefit the exporter? Well, essentially, there's no direct benefit, but what it does for the importer is it makes their products competitive with the products that are coming in here from France or from other parts of Europe or from the United States. Now, in order for our products on the continent, though, to be competitive, we have to take into account not only the processing, but the packaging must be up to international standards. The labeling must be up to international standards. And once we're able to achieve that, then we can move forward with fully trading amongst ourselves. Some of the governments have expressed concerns, and they've been expressed to me, that they're afraid that if they move forward with this and fully push their small and micro-sized businesses to trade, that they will lose money. And the revenue that they're thinking about is the revenue that they will lose because they've reduced the duty to whatever the percentage is or to zero. And I'd like to just pivot off of this and say that, number one, I think it was April of last year, the adjustment fund, the AfCFTA adjustment fund, was established in Rwanda under a group called the Fund for Export Development, which is FETA. So for everybody in the listening audience that has had this thought in their mind, please understand that although you're reducing the duty and you're reducing the revenue of your country, you can make an application for restoration of those monies that you've lost. But the idea is for us to start trading, as small as it is, for all of the micro enterprises and the small businesses. If we can, number one, in my case, sell coffee. In another case, we imported cocoa, I think it was powdered cocoa from Ghana. Even if we look at shea butter and some of the other products that are grown here, or some of the products that I mentioned, imagine what that would look like in 5 years, and in 10 years, and in 20 years. So I want to leave you by saying that please don't be afraid. Take the first step. It's not as difficult as you think it is. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, setting the context, Madame Bridget Harrington, President and CEO of Igre Coffee. Your Excellency, the moderator, you have 1 hour to deliberate, but before that, a minute's video on the Imagine project on Value Addition.
The Africa Prosperity Network, in collaboration with the KGL Group, present the Imagine Project, transforming the continent. Imagine policies fostering raw material transformation within Africa, envisioning specialized regional production and manufacturing hubs, fueling our integration into global value chains. Produce, add value, trade.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, former President, Chairman of the APN, distinguished guests, all protocols observed, and a happy and prosperous new year to you all. And welcome to a very distinguished panel, which I'm excited to moderate, which is really going to talk about two things: how we add value, but I think also how we do business differently. And so let me invite you, audience, first to consider two concepts. The first is prosperity. It is a concept that is almost an outcome. It's a state of being that incorporates all the elements of success, of thriving, of well-being. So while economy is at the center of it, it actually extends way beyond that. Indeed, Ghana's own vision of a wiser Ghana, wealthier, more inclusive, sustainable, environmentally friendly, and resilient, actually captures the concept of prosperity very, very accurately. I'm pleased to have here an amazing panel, and thank you, Bridget, for your excellent context setting to enable us to discuss some of the elements when we think differently. And we don't really have the time to go through your wonderful resumes, but let me say that I think you encapsulate the concept that makes us understand why the idea of thinking outside the box is now a redundant concept. There is no box, and I'm so pleased. Please give particularly Africa's best women are now on the floor with us. Please give them a huge round of applause. And for those of you who think that we can thrive without that, and pardon me, Mr. President, I didn't go to Davos alongside you, but I did follow the proceedings. And one of the statements there was actually that women doing well is correlated with prosperity. And I invite you across both the many panels that we have here today, but also a special side panel that will have many distinguished speakers, women business leaders talking on this later today, to attend this and to see the importance of inclusion. A few other ideas that came from Davos, and I cribbed from McKinsey, which I think are worth mentioning. And I'd like you to consider this as you make your inputs. Speed is crucial. Cooperation must exist alongside competition. Technology, AI, and particularly generative AI, is just starting and is going to disrupt. Sustainability is at the core of everything. Comprehensive approaches are important, and that's why we have a raft of speakers from business, from the private sector, deep in their experiences. Talent will be key, and so prosperity includes education. And something that I just heard last week from the Minister of Finance here, that intentional and servant leadership will be important, that actually the best leaders leave the spaces they lead better than when they came into office. And so I think this is important. So without hesitation, I'm going to go around. I'll remind you that I'm a diplomat by accident. And so if I interrupt you and stop you, please use your 3 to 4 minutes wisely. I'm going to go around first and let you lay out your stalls. as speakers here, on what you see as the sort of opportunities and challenges for value addition. And I think Bridget has already set out that times 10 value of 50 billion to 500 billion. But where do you see this? I'm building from last year, what's already happening? Because I think that's the inspiration that everybody needs in the room. What's really happening? And then I'll come back to ask some follow-on questions and open the floor. So without ado, and maybe just following the order, but being slightly biased, I guess, I come from Nigeria, let me invite my sister, Jumoke Oduwole, who's a special advisor to the Vice President on Investments, among other things, to kick us off with the first 3-4 minutes. You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much, my brother from Nigeria. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. What do we do differently to add value? I think that one of the most important things as Africans that we should think of doing is giving the world what is unique from us. In terms of value addition, we shouldn't just give what the world already has, and I'll give some practical examples. I was at dinner the other day in Nigeria about 2-3 months ago, and the chef, it was a private dinner, and the chef served a delicious drink called cocoa juice. I'd never had it before. It was from Ghana. Imagine if cocoa juice is globally available on every table, just the same way it's orange juice or apple juice. Yes, we grow oranges in Nigeria, we grow oranges everywhere, but Nigeria, Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, we lead the world in cocoa. So imagine the value addition with creativity, with innovation. I'll go on to talk about a few others. Cassava chips, I know that that's exported from Nigeria to the Netherlands. There are other drinks like Zobo, we call it Zobo in Nigeria, it's hibiscus juice. And I also know that we have creative flavors of chocolates. I've had chocolates from Ghana that had plantain chips in it, that has the effect of like a Rice Krispie. So the point is giving the world what is unique to Nigeria. How do we do that? As a government person who works on enabling business environment, I would say immediately that these companies need the space to thrive. What African businesses need are less regulations or adequate regulations and policies that enable them to multiply, to flourish, to collaborate, to work together. We shouldn't be afraid of inputs. Importing is not a bad thing if you're importing inputs and making sure that those inputs are leading to productivity that you can export for value addition. The most important thing is making sure that there's enablement with infrastructure, both hard and soft infrastructure, the people issues being addressed. But I think that most importantly, we should leverage our creativity. I don't want to use all my points now, and I know my brother will stop me soon, but just to say that we have so much to give the world. In terms of technology, Nigerian tech companies have been leading for quite a few years now. In terms of creativity, we've gifted Afrobeat to the world, we've gifted Nollywood to the world, and the world has embraced these things. But is the money from creativity, from innovation, from entertainment, from sports, is it coming back as value addition to the continent? I think that these are industries that are low-hanging fruit, and we should monetize them by having smart policies to deliver the value that is needed across the continent. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you for setting an amazing pace for all the speakers around timekeeping here. I think you've talked about the importance of an enabling environment. It's true that value is created by the private sector, but government needs to create the enabling environment for the private sector to function, to deliver this. Infrastructure, creativity, innovation, these are important concepts. Without ado, let me invite Yvonne, the head of Sub-Saharan Africa for Bank of America Merrill Lynch, to share her thoughts from a deep and experienced background. Yvonne.
Thank you very much. I commend Ghana government for hosting this very important dialogue at this time. I'm going to speak about the financing of, I'm coming at this from a financing angle. But I think in terms of what we need to do differently, we need to actualize the regional approach to solving the world's problems today from Africa, for Africa, and for the world. So when I look at Ghana, and I see the resources that Ghana has. There's some priorities that the country has in terms of being a regional hub for recycling, for really fueling the circular economy. A regional hub so a regional hub also for energy in terms of EV solar charging. There's no reason why Ghana cannot, given the resources it has, like lithium, like the secure and more user-friendly environment for attracting foreign investment, for projects and for manufacturing. There's no reason why that shouldn't be a priority to have solar-charged EV stations manufactured out of Ghana. There's agriculture as well. There's an amazing amount of research that's being done for agriculture in Ghana that needs to be actualized. So how do we do that? And so we talk about this quite a bit as we go around the different countries and conferences. But let's actualize that. Let's look at how we can bring the cost of borrow down by focusing on projects. So if we look at the fiscal challenges that Ghana has now, I think we allow the world to becloud us too much and therefore take away from the plentiful benefits that Ghana does have and that Africa does have. And so therefore, what I mean by that is, while those challenges are being addressed, there are other opportunities. There are other opportunities that we can have where we can reduce the cost of borrow by focusing on projects led by private sector in the region and bringing in blended finance, leveraging the African DFIs a lot more in terms of financing these projects, working with international organizations like ours. Bank of America does have a commitment to deploy and galvanize $1.5 trillion of capital into areas like climate. So while there's other areas that are being fixed, there is a whole host of opportunity in areas like climate where we can focus projects in those spaces. And therefore, when we look at ratings, we're worrying less about the ratings of the countries at this time in Africa, and we're looking more at the ratings of the projects and making sure those are well structured. The private sector, and it was mentioned this morning by AfDB and the EU, etc., about how we must support African private sectors, because they will be critical to fueling growth in the future. We need data. And part of what we need for data, we talk about the critical resources that we have in the continent today and the critical minerals that we have. In reality, we don't know how much we have in the different countries. We certainly don't know the value of them. We need to get to a point where, for example, instead of worrying about raising US dollars and adding that to debt, is there some exchange that we could be doing in Ghana, in other countries, where we're saying, here is, in Ghana, we do gold exchanges for dollar today. But what about lithium exchange for gold, for dollars, or even for other currencies, and going back to the principles of bartering and using those principles to find sources of financing. I'd say one last thing at this stage of my submission. We also need to look more in the global south and work with countries that actually need what we have. So in the global south, Brazil, India, China, and also countries like the Middle East are more interested in what we have to offer on terms that work for us financially and otherwise. And we should be looking there and doing deals there, project-based, led by the private sector, on terms that work for us. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you. Please, a round of applause. And thank you for the important points you raised about finance, because without finance, the gap on the continent is huge. At the SDG summit last year, this runs into trillions. But as you say, those trillions can be broken down. And with the right data, we can unleash that funding. And more importantly, on terms that work for us, something I know African heads of states are very keen to bring to the table. Let me now continue with the ladies. Rosa Whittaker is the president and CEO of the Whittaker Group and has played a lot of roles across both government and the private sector, most notably around the development of the AGOA, the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act, and I think a lot of work around trade. So your thoughts again on the opportunities and challenges.
Thank you very much. First, I'd just like to recognize and thank His Excellency President Nana Akufo-Addo for hosting us, and former President of Mozambique, Chissano. And I just want to start off briefly by saying to Gabby and Wankele, thank you. And what I hope will come out of this, please don't ever underestimate the power of what you're doing. Sometimes we think, well, there's a conference culture, we're talking to the converted, but there's a lot of power in that, because what we need is an echo chamber to be created, where we are developing these ideas, they get repeated over and over until it becomes a consensus around an advocacy agenda. And that agenda then becomes transformative action. Now, I've had briefly 2 examples just to share, because I felt like I should start off with some encouragement. That when we started AGOA, there was really only 5 of us in the US. And we have this saying in our community that we were just sick and tired of being sick and tired of the global trading system, Africa being marginalized. At the time, I was a US diplomat living in Cote d'Ivoire, and I got a request because it was around 1993, and my request was to convince the Ivorian government to join the WTO. And they rightfully had issues with this. What are we getting from global trade? And then I just decided that I would return to Washington, work for my mentor in the Congress, and work with others, 5, to draft a new law. And there were 5 on the African side. And we were told dead on arrival. I don't think there was a labor union that didn't fight us. The NGOs thought we were coming after the aid towards Africa, which I believe is not really hitting the ground in Africa, but that's another speech. We were fought for 5 years, but we had meetings like this, and we had resolve, and we repeated the same thing, and it became a movement. So I want to say that my hope is that the African Prosperity Network will become a movement of ideas, of transformative ideas. So, and then you asked me, I'll briefly tell you, I think there's one ingredient that is the most important ingredient if you want to achieve prosperity and value addition. And it's what my dear friend and noted development economist Paul Collier talks about, the miracle of productivity. The miracle of productivity. Now, if we just think about before the first industrial revolution was underway in Britain in the early 18th century. Now, I remember, if you read history, Thomas Hobbes called much of humanity nasty. The life was nasty, brutal, and short. That was the life of much of the world. That was the life. And inequality was off the chart. But there was something that happened. There was a focus on increasing the output of every individual worker, which was made possible by the steam engine. And that unleashed unimaginable wealth. And I do think that there are a lot that we can do, but we cannot forget that one thing. And it will take a collaboration between the governments and the private sector. Because as you said, Wamp Kelly, governments don't trade, private sectors do, but we all know governments have a lot of say in whether or not, determining whether or not the private sector thrives, governments and governance systems. So I do agree with the partnership. And what I want to remind you, and finally, about this miracle of productivity, that Africa lags behind the world in productivity measures. And I think that's one of the main reasons why we're lagging behind the world in value addition, in prosperity. But it hasn't always been the case. In 1960, Africa surpassed Asia, Africa surpassed South Korea by 20% in productivity. It surpassed Cambodia, it surpassed Thailand. And this was before they became known as the Asian tigers. So I think we need to look at what goes in to stimulating productivity, what innovation, what actions, what collaboration, and be about the business of productivity.
Thank you. Thank you. Please, a round of applause. So, some very powerful statements there. I think the first one really, this whole idea that these conversations are important, that the president here in Ghana, who goes around the world speaking about economic justice and global reform and restructuring, that we need to say it enough for it to become mainstream and gain traction. I think at the end of this, Mr. President, you will not be sick and tired of being sick and tired of saying the same thing. So I definitely think around partnerships and this whole business of productivity and how we really improve productivity and how this space becomes a learning platform so that Africa doesn't keep going to the rest of the world, but the rest of the world can come to Africa. Let me stay with the powerful women and introduce yet another one, Dr. Amani Asfor. I've met you before. She is the president of the Africa Business Council and is also a member of the Africa Prosperity Network's Council of Advisors. You have a wealth of experience across the continent, and I've heard you speak inspiringly before. Please share your thoughts on this important issue.
Thank you very much, my dear brother. Your Excellency, President Nana, Your Excellency, Foreign President of Mozambique, Chesano, my dear brother, SG Wamakili, my dear brother, Gabi, Executive Chairman of Africa Prosperity Network, Deputy Speaker of the Egyptian Parliament, Honorable Abu Al-Ainin, all my dear sisters and brothers here and across the continent. Your Excellencies have been talking about the private sector. So Africa Business Council is the voice of the private sector. It is established by the heads of states to be your council, representing the voice of the African private sector, including SMEs, women and youth. So how do we make business really different? And Your Excellency, President Nana, you mentioned that we have 65% of the arable land within Africa, but we still import $50 billion per year food from outside the continent. So how can we really make this formula? 2030, we will need 200 million batteries, vehicles, electrical vehicles. Where are we going to manufacture our lithium batteries? Are we going to export lithium to China to be done there and then imported, or we invest on the continent to add value to our products on the continent? So our founding vision of the Africa Business Council is a competitive, borderless, innovative Africa for trade, investment and industrialization. So the whole issue of industrialization and value addition is our core, but how can we really do it? So I have a strategy, I call it the triad of empowerment, 3 Ps, 3 pillars. Private sector strengthening, including SMEs, women and youth, policy advocacy, and product development. So the issue of private sector strengthening, including SMEs, women and youth, is really about building the capacity of our African people, our African private sector. How do we build the capacity? By education, by training, by information. This is really about the core of our private sector. The second pillar, which is about policy advocacy. Your Excellency, President Nana, you are here supporting the Africa Prosperity Dialogue. Our prosperity will only come from really focusing on empowering the private sector by policies. And that one of the recommendations we took during the African Union Private Sector Summit, around the summit, was to have at least 40% of all government procurement goes to African private sector, including SMEs, women and youth. What? Yes, I need a clap because this is for the African private sector. My brothers and sisters, whatever produced on the African soil, we cannot bring it from outside the African soil. And this is what we really have to focus on. We have to have a mapping exercise of what's existing on the continent, what are we producing, how we strengthen the capacity of the private sector to produce and use what we are having. Again, so we need incentives for investment of African private sector. We need to lower the corporate taxes in order to promote our African private sector. We need a whole internal reforms. We need financial inclusion, access to credit for our African private sector. But we're doing all this to reach to the third pillar, which is product development. A made in Africa product which is competitive, value added, standardized, quality, and for this we need to have industrial parks, we need to have business incubators, we need to have a real product development, packaging, and really about, as my sister said, it's about packaging, it's about value addition, it's about quality of the Made in Africa product. So if we're talking about AfCFTA and one single market of 1.3 billion people, what should this 1.3 billion people do? How can, for instance, in Africa, if we have as the shea butter in West Africa, it goes to big cosmetic companies outside the continent to be value added. If we have, for instance, medical consumer supply, in Egypt, for instance, we have 400 industries of medical consumer supplies, yet we still import from India and China. What really matters is that we all work together, coordinated. That's why really I applaud the Africa Prosperity Network, because it comes to really say that it's not about what some of our African leaders, which I challenge some of our African leaders when they say, we want Africa free from hunger, free from disease, free from illiteracy, free from poverty. And they say, no, we don't want Africa free from hunger. We want Africa well-nourished, not free from disease, but healthy, not free from poverty, but wealthy, not free from illiteracy, but well-educated. This is the Africa we want, and this is the Africa prosperity. Thank you.
Thank you. There are a lot of inspiration there. Sorry, slightly distracted. I think you'll agree with me when I said very inspiring, the 3 Ps, and I'm sure we'll come back to that. And some very practical examples of what I might call low-hanging fruits in agriculture, in, if you like, net zero future electric cars and the potential that we have here on the continent. I'm going to move to the men now, ladies and gentlemen. We've heard from 4 powerful women, and we've also talked about the importance of technology, and we all know that technology enabled us to leapfrog
and unleash significant value on the continent. And here with us is the head of markets of MTN to share some thoughts really on where are we now, and will you still have a job when generative AI takes over so completely? And what's the future, and how will this help us add value on the continent? Ebenezer Asante.
Thank you very much. For sure, I hope I'll have a job. But let me start by taking an inspiration from some of the words expressed by the President of Ghana, Nana Addo Akufo-Addo, when he touched on the fact that we in Africa seem to be resource-rich, but we are very poor in terms of being resourceful. Resource-rich, but resourceful, poor. And I guess one of the jinx in trying to bridge that gulf is the subject of trade. And for me, I'm not just looking at it from the point of just value addition, but also qualifying it with distinctive value addition. Sitting here, I have had a benefit of selling commodities. I've had a benefit of selling brands, and today I am selling technology. And I know the difference between commodity, what a brand is, and what technology difference it can bring. The way we trade today is completely different from the way we used to trade 20 years, 30 years ago. But unfortunately, it appears we in Africa are not recognizing some of the shifts. And I'll just give a few examples. If you trace the history of trade, whether it's the mass production era, or it's the Industrial Revolution, or even the emergence of technology, they've all been born out of crisis. And with the COVID situation that we have today, we are all beginning to see some of the shifts also that we need to pay attention to. Today, we also have geopolitical tensions that also is redefining trade. And we in Africa have to reposition ourselves to be able to take advantage of the situation, be it in sustainability, which is a mega trend, or in geopolitical shifts that we are seeing. We seem to be well positioned, very proximate to Europe, but are we taking advantage of our location and position? Sustainability has become a major topic, and it's a high trillion business. And we in Africa seem to be playing with the narrative of the West. And just take for instance, if there is a case for relocation of factories from the West to Africa, that case is also in sustainability. Why would we carry cocoa from here with the moisture, with the waste, all the way to Switzerland for it to be processed, and then we bring it back? Who is tracking the net zero effect of that logistics and the supply chain? So there is a mega case for relocation of industries close to where the raw materials are. And I think it's one of the things that we need to do, and we need to rethink even the way we embrace subjects like climate change, sustainability, and what it means for Africa. There is a subject of carbon trading. And carbon trading, where is the carbon residing? The bulk of it in Africa. And what place is Africa taking to ensure that 20, 30 years from now, we will lead the world in carbon trading? I am not forgetting the issue of technology, because technology is an enabler. And if we don't understand the sectors that technology should be influencing, then we may also miss the point. There is a lot of nourishment in terms of needs that we need to meet in Africa. There is a lot of clothing needs that we need to meet in Africa. There is a lot of habitat needs that we need to meet in Africa. And that is where technology comes in. There was a point around productivity that Africa is lagging behind. And the role of technology or digitization should be able to enable that productivity. And for us to be part of that distinctive global trade to capture top value, we need technology to be able to do that. And that is why the examples in Ghana that we are beginning to see, the push towards digitization, should not just be taken as a political position. It should be taken as something that we need collectively in a very bipartisan manner for the forward march of this country. Because if we continue to trade and do business both within Ghana and across the continent, the same old order, then we are not going anywhere. Take e-commerce as an example. It's showing us that when it comes to technology, there are no barriers. You sit in Ghana, you order goods, it comes. If GRA is lucky, it will be able to trace value. But for 99% of the time, they are not able to trace value. So it is also about time, once again, with the enablement of technology, for us to allow the issue of sovereignty that is leading to closed borders to give way. And I'm happy that our president is talking about a time in his era during which no one will require a visa to come to Ghana. And this is something that we should be doing 20 years ago. And it should not just be Ghana, it should be everywhere. So taking advantage of fintech for payments across borders. Why is it that today you will live in Ghana, you cannot transfer money to Nigeria or you cannot receive money from Nigeria? Everybody says you can bring money, but you can't take out money. The tyranny of sovereignty must give way, and we must break the borders for Africa trade to lift. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ebenezer. Really powerful points there about never waste the crisis and learning from COVID, and really learning and adapting quickly to the changes that are out there. There was a UNDP report after COVID in Africa that actually backs up that Davos position, because it found that women adapted to technology and used it to thrive in their businesses during COVID more quickly than men, which really reinforces that role, that sense that actually for your economy to thrive and prosper, women have to be a big part of it. Lots of words around value addition and e-commerce and the importance of this, and taking advantage of our location. And what seems like a no-brainer, really, that production needs to come to where raw materials are. We're coming home, but I want to introduce one last speaker before I call on my brother Yofi to wrap it up. On the panel originally, held up by his delayed flight, with apologies, is Mr. Ibrahim Mahama, the founder, engineers and planners and CEO of Data Cement. Please, can you join us on the high table? I would spend some time introducing you, but I think almost everybody knows you globally, and so it's a pleasure to have you. A significant business mogul, someone who has demonstrated value addition, and who has played a strong role, not just in Ghana's economy, but the sub-regional and African economy. And let me say something else about every panelist, because I reviewed all of your bios. None of you are just business people. You're also amazing philanthropists. And so the concept that doing well also means doing good is very much at your heart. And when we come to the Q&A section, I'd really like you to talk about that intersection of your passion and what's important to you as being a driver beyond the sort of technical pieces that need to change. So I'm going to invite you, Mr. Ibrahim Mahama, to share your thoughts on what's working. And Yofi, I'll come back to you to wrap this all up.
Thank you. H.E., sorry for being late. I was following your footsteps from Liberia. And Gabi, thanks for inviting me. Yeah, a few of my experiences, what I'll share with you. No written speeches, nothing. I came back from the UK in 1997 and started a small rental company. I was expecting to run a business that could earn me possibly $50,000 a month, but looking in here, saw the opportunities in Ghana and Africa.
I took advantage of it, and the business grew bigger than me. What that meant was that a lot of the things that we needed to help our people with were constrained with finance to be able to help the citizenry. But what happened then was that a few banks saw the advantage of helping a local company and helped us from one equipment to equipment, and we became bigger. We then scouted into Africa and saw the advantages of the minerals that we had, but we had a missing link where we couldn't put together. In Ghana, we had a lot of gold, bauxite. In Liberia, we had a lot of iron ore. In Guinea, we had bauxite and iron ore. So we took advantage of that and started doing the exploration to see what benefits we could harness. In doing that, we found out that Africa was sitting on billions of dollars and didn't know where its direction was. So what then we did, we then worked backwards to see the traders who were trading our commodities, and we contacted them. Now, unfortunately, there's been a missing link between our countries where, unfortunately, our presidents are not talking to each other to see how they could get the benefits from themselves. So fortunately, the Liberian president-elect, Sirleaf Johnson, told us she wanted us to help her start this first mine that Mittal had started. We went in there. It was a 33 million ton mine over 30 months. Fortunately, we took skill from Ghana, took to Liberia, brought Liberia unskilled after 20 years of civil war, brought them to Ghana, trained them, took them back again. We worked there 3 years. We handed over to the Liberians, and they've done very, very well. I had the opportunity in Liberia to speak to my president, and I told him that there's a lot of opportunities in Ghana that could help our country. In Ghana, our city is struggling. It's just because whatever we export, 100% doesn't come in. So what I was actually proposing to say is that, and I proposed to the president, and he gave me audience and even invited me to come, which I'm going to follow up after this event, is that if you know about the volumes of gold we produce, and we don't hold that in our vaults to also say it could help our currency. If we do that, I'm sure that alone would not benefit Ghana, but it would benefit the sub-region. So what I'll propose is that let's look within and see the talents we have. A small example of one of the stories that one of the big copper mines started in Zambia. They came in here, took 28 Ghanaians, started an investment of 480 million and paid it off in 18 months. I was just saying to those same Ghanaians who went out there and said, if we let them stay here and do the same, Ghana would benefit. So I believe that if we harness the information we have in the sub-region and work with ourselves, this could be the best region that everybody would be running to. I know COVID was an issue, but we should have used COVID to correct our mistakes, to be able to work in here. A few people didn't move, but the countries didn't stop. If we can go back to that era and see how things worked in that era, I think that we would know that most of the benefits we want is here and we can do it together. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mahama, for your thoughts and inputs. I'd like to highlight a few of them, a couple of them that you've made. Keep our talent, and really, if we don't keep our talent, it's use it or lose it is really one of those key messages. And I think really building a greater connectedness and vision, which I think is behind the idea that Mr. President has put here for the Africa Prosperity Dialogues of bringing leaders together to get that consensus. And indeed, Saturday is about a compact that begins to commit to a way forward where countries are holding hands, taking all these nuggets of wisdom and putting them together and committing to that line of action. So very much in line with what really the ambition of APD is. Last but by no means least, let me invite our friend, my friend, colleague, Yofi Grant, who's the Chief Executive Officer of Ghana's own Investment Promotion Council, and is indeed a sub-Saharan leader of investment promotion councils across the continent. And on a number of the points that have been made here, the UN is working, particularly in partnership with GIPC and the Office of the SDGs under the presidency, to leverage in new finance and create the opportunities that mean that all the things that you've been talking about happen. Yofi, please inspire us now with your thoughts and story.
Thank you very much, and it's a delight to be here. But it's very interesting listening to all the panelists and the examples that have happened. And I like to pinch a bit from what my technology friend said, that there seems to be some sort of tyranny of sovereignty, is that what you call it, on the continent, which has separated private sector from public sector. And indeed, if you look at the African economy, a significant proportion of it is dominated by the public sector, which in itself is a problem. And there needs to be that migration. But I noted a few points in my head, some of them a bit complex, but very simple as well. So I'll pick from everybody's thing. First and foremost, I think one of the big problems that we have on the continent is trust for mutuality. Trust for mutuality. And because of that lack of trust for mutuality, we do not have a regional approach to resource management policies. And I'll give you a few examples. Let's take the solar battery, photovoltaic battery. 85% of a battery is aluminum. 85%. The other components may be cobalt, silver, etc., etc. Now, if you come to the west coast of Africa, Guinea, Ghana, abundant in bauxite, and so could be a region for aluminum production. And every single photovoltaic cell in the world is 85% aluminum. It's a no-brainer. That is where we should be, because that's where the value chain is. If you look at cobalt, 70% of the cobalt in the world is from the DRC. And so there again, it's a no-brainer. Almost 100% of a solar battery or a photovoltaic cell can be manufactured in Africa. Indeed, I get from the AfCFTA, from research done, that the production of a battery in Africa is much cheaper than you'd find in China. And yet we export all our components to China. Look at lithium. Lithium is in abundance on the continent. Almost the whole of West Africa is, in a foundation of lithium. Now, we need to make use now, because if we don't, in the next 4 years, the price of lithium is going to drop, and we are not going to benefit from it. But it will not drop if we utilize it ourselves to produce these photovoltaic cells. And when you look at the continent, we are resource rich. So why don't we have a regional approach to resource management policies where we share for mutuality? And I cracked a joke to somebody yesterday when we were talking about local content. And I said, isn't it strange that Africa is resource rich, yet we do local content policies? Why don't we have foreign content policies instead? The resources are ours, and yet we are thinking of local content. We should be talking of foreign content. But that cannot happen without local empowerment. And so the view that we need to empower our private sector is without question. That you're already empowered. It's without question. And we should reorient our policies towards empowering our private sectors, because the public sector technically creates the environment and the private sector enacts. And for most private sector companies, especially the serious ones, give them the opportunity. They'll find the money, they'll find how to utilize the opportunity and produce. So those are some of the things that we need to, accept. And that is what comes out on the, the tyranny of sovereignty. We box ourselves into over-regulatory, situations to the benefit of outside the continent, when all the power is here. So that is one. And on the issue of sustainability and green industrialization, without doubt, once again, Africa is more resourced for energy transition than any other continent. I mean, if you look at solar radiation on the continent, it's about 4 or 5 times what you find even in other states where there's abundant sunshine. And we have the minerals to support it. So we should take advantage of that. And if you think that we are going to industrialize, then we also must be thinking of how we would facilitate green finance, because the more industries we create here, the more the chances we are also going to increase our, our carbon footprint. Today, Africa produces less than 3% of global emissions. But if we are to activate AfCFTA, we need at least 2 million trucks to haul across the continent. That is more emissions. So we need the technology, and that is why the importance of investing in education and life skills should not be underestimated. Many countries that in the past 30 decades elevated themselves was through education and research. So we need to understand that. And then, of course, the biggest dividend that the continent has is the youth bracket. Today, we are 1.4 billion people, of which 60% is under the age of 35. By 2050, we will be 2.6 billion, 1/4 of the world's population. But that demography will still be there. That is a consumer market waiting to happen. That is also potentially the world's largest cadre of human capital to drive change in the world. So I have always said that today, what is an African problem is actually a solution for the global problem of global economic growth. The world needs Africa today much more than it ever did before. And so we should not underestimate the power we have. But that power will only come if we grab the bull by the horns and wrestle it down. I was so delighted to hear Mr. President say that African passports can now come to Ghana in the very near future. That is opening the doors. We have open skies. But yet, if I have to fly from here to DRC Congo or to Dakar or to Banjul, it's easier for me to go to Europe to come down. I can't just for the life of me understand why we don't have that. So it's very important. What we've done at GIPC on the green finance is actually we've initiated what we call the responsible sustainable investor, which we are promoting. And very soon, Mr. President will bring the document to you, where we will no more just give blanket incentives for foreign direct investors, but we apply those incentives to investors who enable us achieve the SDGs according to our national plan. And accordingly, I'm also championing the cause of integrating the African investment promotion agencies to one association, so we can speak with the same voice in the same way and optimize our opportunities along regional lines.
Thank you so much, Yofi. Please give him a huge round of applause. Lots in there around R&D, around young people, and R&D, by the way, is a priority for Ghana, identified from its voluntary national review in 2022. Yes, just before I come to you, let me just, I think one thing you have said, and I think it's pertinent to this conversation, is trust, and building that trust. Stephen Covey describes it as the speed of trust, and I think we really need to invest in ways that make sure that we're able to do that beyond just the exchange. And I really value this concept of, are we talking about a local content policy being inserted in every policy, or the idea of a foreign content policy being actually put into everything? I'm going to come back to my sister. Please don't accuse me of bias.
I was very brief the first time. I just wanted to say very few words. What we're actually doing in Nigeria, the PEBEC, that I have the privilege to coordinate, just launched a new program which is supporting Nigerian business champions. So they're PEBEC business champions. And I saw Mr. Mahama vehemently saying to GIPC. So what that is that there are only about 345 businesses that generate over $1 billion per annum on the African continent, about half of which are in South Africa. Nigeria has only 23. So we started a program, a bespoke program to support those businesses. They're selected by, of course, revenue generation, the amount of jobs they create around the continent, around the country, the export proceeds, because all of us have this foreign exchange and currencies that are, just not to take up too much time to say that we have to support our champions. As much as we support our football teams to win African Cup of Nations, more importantly, we want them to win the World Cup. Thank you.
Thank you very much, my sister. A really rich panel. Please give the whole panel a huge round of applause. I'm looking to you, Jerry, conscious of time, but conscious that I'm sure there's something from the public in terms of what they want to do. Or are you, I'll be guided by you on the time.
We'll do that during lunch. How about that? Because the president has obliged to stay with us for lunch. Please, a round of applause.
You're more diplomatic than me. So on behalf of the panel, I mean, there were many, many important points, far too many, and I'm sure those who've been taking the notes of this panel have taken all of these nuggets, and that they will all find their way, and the examples, the inspiration, will find its way into the compact that Mr. President oversees on Saturday as it gets signed, to build this partnership, to create the speed of trust needed to deliver on the vision of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, which is the work of so many people here today. So let me end this session by inviting you once again to give our panelists a huge round of applause as we leave the stage.
And a bigger one for our moderator, His Excellency Charles Abani, for steering so effortlessly this amazing panel. How about a group photograph together? Shortly, we have one big family photo, but before that, 2 short videos on 3I and the AfCFTA.
A new trade agreement promises to be a game changer for Africa. The African Continental Free Trade Area will unite 55 countries into a single market worth $3.4 trillion by cutting tariffs within Africa and making it easier to move goods across borders. The ambitious agreement also hopes to harmonize the policies of African countries in areas such as digital trade, investment and competition, and intellectual property. Together, these steps could boost growth by 9% on average, lift 50 million people out of extreme poverty by 2035, and create almost 18 million new jobs. A new report explains how. Trade and investment drive growth in developing countries, but Africa's fractured internal market has prevented it from benefiting fully. The smoother flow of trade could raise real income in Africa by almost $300 billion by 2035. The agreement will also open up trade in services such as transport and communications. A single African market with streamlined regulations could almost double foreign investment between African countries themselves. Foreign investment brings know-how and helps firms join regional and global value chains. Deepening trade flows and diversifying to other industries could help reduce Africa's dependence on volatile commodity exports. Exports between African countries, especially in manufactured goods, could double by 2035, with income gains reaching $571 billion. This would create higher paid, better quality jobs, especially for women. Steps to unlock the potential. To realize these gains, the treaty's most ambitious goals must be carried out.
We shall take a longer version of that when we do come back. It's my pleasure now to invite you, the President of our Republic, in the company of the former president of Mozambique, the Secretary General of the AfCFTA, our executive chair, together with the board and advisory council of the APN for the first photograph with all our speakers and panelists. There are 5 photos in all. The second will be with ministers and heads of mission. Please hold yourselves in readiness. I'll be calling you shortly. For now, the President of the Republic, the former President of Mozambique, the Secretary General, the Chair of the APN, the board and council members, together with all. Okay. Thank you, board and panelists. Let's have all ministers and heads of mission, together with the Honorable Deputy Speaker. Yes. Joining the President and the official party for the next photo, we welcome all ministers and heads of mission. If you're finished with your photo, please, I urge you to take your seats. All ministers from across the region and the diaspora, please join us. Ghana Police Band, please get ready for the anthems of the AU and the Republic of Ghana. We shall all be escorted to lunch, which is happening at the tennis court. The ushers are in front. They would escort all registered delegates. If you have your tag, please bring it along. If you don't, please register at the front and you'll be ushered for lunch. Sponsors, you are next. Representatives of our sponsors, you're next. Representatives of our sponsors, please. Thank you, heads of mission. Thank you, ministers of state. Our sponsors, please, let's be snappy. All our sponsors. Representatives of all our sponsors, please. The last will be with all chief executives of the private sector and public sector. All chief executives, you are the last. All chief executives, please join us on stage. One big family photo and we're done. Please be snappy. All chief executives, please join our sponsors. All chief executives, this is the last call. And so united in rewriting the narrative from poverty alleviation to prosperity accentuation, I ask that we rise for the anthems of the AU and the Republic of Ghana. Please rise. Please stand in readiness for the anthems of the AU and the Republic of Ghana. May God bless the Africa Prosperity Dialogues, and may He bless our homeland Africa and make her the tree of life great and strong. I ask that we all stand and remain standing as the President and his entourage take leave of us first. We shall all be led out in sections. Please, don't be in a hurry. It is requested that we leave all headsets, translation devices right here in the room. Please do not take it along with you. Thank you very much.